the ice and the stranger. The wind screamed across the frozen plains. Snow whipped through the air like 1,000 tiny blades, stinging any skin left uncovered. The world here was nothing but white and gray. Endless ice, jagged cliffs, and the faint black shadows of old wreckage, half buried in snow. Captain Rian Holt moved carefully through the storm, each step sinking deep into the snow. His visor flickered with warnings. Temperature, critical. Visibility, low. He had been separated from his unit during the last battle, and now his only goal was to make it to the evac point before the storm buried the world completely. He almost didn't see her. A dark shape lay ahead, half covered by drifting snow. At first, he thought it was another fallen soldier. He approached slowly, rifle ready, but then he noticed movement. A hand, pale, trembling. Rian knelt beside the figure, brushing the snow from her face. She was young, maybe mid-20s, by human standards, but not human. Her skin was pale silver, with faint patterns like frost across her cheeks. Her hair was long and white, frozen into stiff strands. Her lips were almost blue. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow. She was dying. Rian hesitated. For all he knew, she was the enemy. Her people had fought against humanity for years. But out here, in the storm, there was no army, no flag, only life or death. He pulled off his thermal cloak and wrapped it tightly around her. "Hang in there," he muttered, though he knew she couldn't hear him. Lifting her was harder than he expected. She was light, but the snow was deep, and the wind pushed against him like a wall. His boots crunched and sank as he moved toward the only shelter. Nearby, a jagged cliff where he'd seen a dark opening earlier. Behind him. The storm howled louder. As he reached the cliffside, he found the entrance to a cave, its mouth half blocked by ice. He forced his way inside, carrying her to the back where the wind couldn't reach. The cave was cold, but at least it wasn't deadly. Rian set her down carefully and activated a small portable heater from his survival kit. A faint orange light spread across the walls, revealing strange markings, symbols carved into the stone long before humans came to this world. He removed his gloves and checked her pulse. Faint, weak. Her skin was like ice. Rian worked quickly, using a heated water pack to warm her hands, pressing the thermal cloak tighter around her. As he worked, he studied her features, the fine lines of her face, the faint shimmer in her skin. He had never seen someone like her up close. Then she moved. Her eyes opened slowly, glowing faint gold in the dim light. She looked at him for a long moment, as if trying to understand what she was seeing. Her lips parted, and she whispered something in a language he didn't know. The sound was soft, like wind through glass. "I don't understand you," Rian said gently, "but you're safe, for now." She blinked slowly, her gaze still locked on his face, as though trying to decide if he was real. Then her eyes closed. Again, her breathing steadying slightly. Rian sat back, keeping his rifle close. He didn't know who she was, or why she had been alone in the middle of this frozen wasteland. But one thing was clear. Someone like her didn't just end up here by accident. Outside, the storm raged on. But beneath the sound of the wind, Rian thought he heard something else. A faint hum, mechanical and distant. He moved to the cave entrance and peered out through the swirling snow. Far away, dark shapes moved across the white. Small, but fast. Drones. They were sweeping the area, their red lights scanning the ground. They weren't human models, which meant they were here for her. Rian's jaw tightened. He glanced back at the unconscious figure wrapped in his cloak. Whoever she was, someone wanted her badly enough to send machines into this death storm. He didn't know if they were here to rescue her, or to make sure she never left this world alive. Either way, if they found the cave, there would be no talking. Only killing. Rian checked the charge on his rifle. Half a clip left. Not enough for a fight against machines in open ground. He turned back toward her. She lay still, her breathing quiet but steady. "Guess we're both stuck here," he muttered. But in the back of his mind, one thought wouldn't leave him. What kind of person is worth risking drones in a storm like this? And why did he feel like saving her might change everything? Shelter in the storm. The wind outside the cave roared like an angry beast. Snow swirled so thick that the world beyond the entrance was nothing but shifting white. But through the storm, the red glow of drones grew brighter, moving in a slow, steady sweep across the frozen plain. Captain Rian Holt stayed low near the entrance, his rifle ready. He knew drones like these, small enough to move quickly, armed enough to kill in seconds. Their sensors could pierce through snow if they got close. Behind him, the woman lay wrapped in his thermal cloak. Her silver skin and pale hair seemed almost to blend into the frost-covered walls. She looked fragile, but something about her still radiated presence. Then she stirred. Her eyes opened again, glowing faint gold in the dim light. This time, there was no confusion in them. Only urgency. She sat up quickly, her voice sharp and low, speaking in that same strange language. Her gaze darted toward the cave entrance, then back to him. "I don't understand," Rian whispered. She pressed her hands together, then made a quick slicing motion across her throat, a gesture anyone could understand. "Danger." Rian nodded. "Yeah, I figured." The hum of the drones grew louder. Their red lights cut through the snow like small beacons, passing closer to the cliffside. Rian shifted his stance, his body tense. If they found the cave, they'd be trapped inside with no way out. He turned back to her. "Can you move?" She hesitated, then pulled the cloak tighter and forced herself to her feet. Her legs trembled, and he had to steady her before she fell. "Stay behind me," he said. She frowned, clearly not understanding every word, but the tone, the way he positioned himself between her and the entrance, told her enough. A sudden flicker of red light appeared at the cave mouth. Rian's breath slowed. He pressed her back into the shadows, raising his rifle. One drone hovered just outside, scanning the snow. Its sensors swept toward the entrance. Rian waited until the light passed over him, then pulled the trigger. The rifle cracked, and the drone fell in a burst of sparks. The sound was like a signal. More red lights appeared in the storm. 3, 4. Maybe more. "Move." Rian grabbed her hand and pulled her deeper into the cave. They passed the heater and his scattered gear, moving toward the narrow tunnel at the back. The cave walls grew tighter, the path twisting into darkness. The only light came from the small lamp on his belt. Their footsteps echoed in the narrow space, chased by the faint mechanical hum behind them. She stumbled once, her breathing sharp. He slowed just enough to keep her steady, but not enough to lose ground. The deeper they went, the more the cold air bit at his skin. Finally, the tunnel opened into a larger chamber. Strange carvings covered the walls. Tall, elegant figures holding weapons of light, frozen forever in stone. The floor glittered faintly under his lamp. He set her down against a wall and checked his rifle. The charge was low. Too low. She touched his arm, pointing to the far wall. At first, he didn't see it. Then he noticed a narrow gap between 2 slabs of rock. A way out? He asked. She nodded quickly. The hum of the drones grew louder again. Their lights flickered in the tunnel behind them. Rian helped her to her feet and moved toward the gap, forcing his way through sideways. The rock scraped against his armor, but he made it through, pulling her after him. On the other side was another tunnel, this one sloping downward into darkness. The sound of the storm was gone now, replaced by a deep, steady rumble, like something alive far below. She looked uneasy, glancing back toward the drones. Then, for the first time, she spoke a single word in clear, accented English. Run. Rian. Didn't need telling twice. The hunter in the snow. The tunnel walls seemed to close in as Rian and the woman ran deeper into the darkness. His lamp flickered over jagged stone and frozen patches of ice. The rumble from below grew louder, now joined by another sound, a slow, heavy scraping. Like claws on rock dot, the woman glanced at him, her golden eyes wide. She spoke quickly in her own language, her voice tight with fear. Rian didn't understand the words, but he didn't need to. Something was coming. They reached a wider section of the tunnel. Here, the floor was littered with bones, long, thin, and broken. Some still had frozen flesh clinging to them. The air smelled faintly of rot, even in the cold. Rian's grip on his rifle tightened. Stay behind me. A low growl rolled through the darkness ahead, deep enough to vibrate in his chest. Then, two pale shapes appeared in the dark eyes. They reflected the faint light of his lamp, unblinking. The creature stepped into view. It was huge, its back brushing the low ceiling. Its body was covered in thick, white fur streaked with old scars. Long, spined limbs ended in claws like curved blades. Its mouth opened, showing rows of needle-like teeth. It didn't roar. It just stared, slow and patient. Rian raised his rifle, but he knew the charge was low. 2, maybe 3 good shots left. He would have to make them count. The creature began to move, slow at first, then faster, claws scraping sparks from the frozen floor. Rian fired. The shot hit the creature's shoulder, burning a black hole into its fur, but it barely slowed. He fired again, aiming for its head. The creature jerked sideways, the blast grazing its cheek instead of killing it. Now it was close, too close. Rian shoved. The woman behind a rock outcrop. Stay there. The beast lunged, swiping with claws that could cut steel. Rian ducked under the strike and slashed at its arm with his combat knife, opening a shallow wound. The creature howled, the sound echoing painfully in the tunnels. It came at him again, faster now, forcing him back toward the chamber wall. Boots slid on the ice. The rifle clattered from his hands. The creature's jaws snapped inches from his face. Rian drove the knife into its neck, but the blade stuck fast. The beast slammed him against the wall, knocking the air from his lungs. Before it could strike again, a strange, high-pitched hum filled the air. The woman had stepped out from behind the rock, holding a small, glowing device in her hand. Her eyes blazed gold. She pressed something on the device, and a pulse of blue light burst from it, hitting the creature in the chest. The beast stumbled back, its fur smoking where the light had struck. It shook its head violently, snarling, but now it moved slower. Rian grabbed his rifle from the floor, aimed carefully, and fired his last shot straight into its eye. The creature screamed and collapsed, its body sliding across the ice before lying still. For a long moment, the only sound was their breathing. The woman dropped the glowing device, her hands shaking. Rian looked at her. What the hell was that? She didn't answer. Instead, she pointed to the ceiling of the chamber. Cracks were spreading across the ice overhead. The fight had weakened the structure. Chunks of frozen rock began to fall. Rian grabbed her arm. Move! They sprinted toward the far side of the chamber, dodging falling shards of ice. The tunnel ahead sloped upward, a faint glimmer of light at the far end. The rumble of collapsing stone followed them. They burst out into the open, a blinding white plain under the storm clouds. But there was no time to breathe. Rian spotted movement in the distance. Not the drones this time, ships. Small, fast, and heading straight toward them. The woman's expression hardened. She said something in her language. and looked at him with sudden urgency. "They come." "For me," she said in halting English. Rian stared at her. "Who are you?" She didn't answer. She just looked away, and in that silence, he knew the truth was something he might not want to hear. The chase across the ice. The wind hit them like a wall as they stepped out of the tunnel. Snow swirled so thick it was hard to see more than a few meters ahead. But through the white haze, Rian could make out the dark shapes of ships landing on the plain. 3 dropships, sleek, fast, built for pursuit. The moment the ramps dropped, armored soldiers poured out. Their armor was dark steel, marked with the same crest Rian had seen on enemy banners in battle. Weapons glowed faint red in their hands. The woman's golden eyes narrowed. She spoke in her own language, a short, sharp phrase Rian didn't understand, but her voice carried a weight of anger. "Move!" Rian barked. They ran across the frozen ground, their boots crunching over hard ice. The plain was wide and flat, no rocks, no hills, nothing to hide behind. The storm clawed at their faces, but it wasn't enough to hide them from the enemy. Shouts echoed through the snow. Then came the sound of pulse fire, bright red blasts cutting through the storm. Rian pulled the woman down just in time. A beam scorched the ice where her head had been a second earlier. "They're not here to talk," Rian said through gritted teeth. He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward a cluster of jagged ice formations far ahead. They weren't much cover, but they were better than nothing. The soldiers advanced quickly, their armor making them almost shadows in the snow. One raised a shoulder launcher and fired. The ground exploded behind them, throwing Rian forward onto the ice. He scrambled up, dragging her with him. She was breathing hard now, her steps slower. "Come on, we're almost there," he urged. They reached the ice spires, ducking behind the largest one. Rian peeked out. The soldiers had spread into a wide arc, cutting off escape in both directions. Woman's gaze dropped to something in her cloak, a small, black device no bigger than her palm. She looked at it, then at him, as if weighing a decision. Before Rian could ask, a voice crackled from a soldier's comb through the storm. "Princess, hold still. We will retrieve you." The word princess hit Rian like a blow. He turned to her sharply. "Princess?" She didn't deny it. Rian stepped back, his rifle still in his hands. "You're the one they've been hunting? This whole time?" Her eyes met his, steady, unflinching. "If they take me, many will die, not just me." He wanted to ask more, but there was no time. The soldiers were closing in, moving between the ice spires, their weapons ready. Rian took a deep breath. "All right, princess. Stay close." The first soldier rounded the ice. Rian's rifle cracked, dropping him instantly. Another came from the other side. Rian swung the weapon, firing again. The woman crouched low, clutching the small device in her cloak. A blue light began to pulse from it, faint at first, then stronger. "What are you doing?" Rian demanded, calling. "Storm," she said, her voice low but certain. He didn't have time to question it. The soldiers were now only meters away, and he was running low on ammo. And the wind shifted. It came suddenly, a howl louder than before, tearing across the plain. The snow thickened until visibility dropped to almost nothing. The temperature plunged even lower. Rian realized she wasn't speaking figuratively. She was controlling the storm. The soldiers' shouts turned confused. Their red targeting beams swept wildly in the whiteout, unable to find their targets. Rian didn't waste the chance. He grabbed her hand again and pulled her deeper into the ice fields, using the storm as cover. They ran until the sounds of the soldiers faded behind them. Finally, they collapsed into a narrow gap between 2 towering ice walls. Rian leaned against the frozen wall, his breath heavy. "All right, princess, we need to talk." She looked at him, snow clinging to her hair. Later, they will come again. And next time, storm will not save us. Truth in the dark, the wind finally began to fade as they moved deeper into the ice. Fields. Through the thick snow, a dark shape appeared ahead, the broken silhouette of an old military outpost, half buried under years of frost. Rian approached cautiously, scanning the area. No movement, no heat signatures on his visor. Just the long-forgotten ruins of a war that had ended long before he was born. The outpost doors were frozen shut, but with a hard shove and the groan of rusted metal, they swung open. Inside was cold and dark, but at least it was shelter. Rian set the small heater from his kit in the center of the room. Its dim orange glow pushed back some of the shadows. The walls were covered in peeling paint and frost, and a collapsed ceiling beam split the room in two. The woman, the princess, sank onto a frozen bench, pulling the thermal cloak tighter around her. She didn't speak, her eyes watching him silently. Finally, Rian broke the silence. "You're going to tell me who you are. All of it. Now." She hesitated, then reached into her cloak and pulled out the small black device she had used to summon the storm. She placed it carefully on the bench between them. "My name is Lyra Vera," she said in slow, careful English. "Daughter of Emperor Kale Vera, ruler of the Veran Empire." Rian's stomach tightened. The Verans were one of humanity's most dangerous enemies. Entire colonies had burned under their warships. "You're telling me," Rian said, his voice flat, "that I've been dragging around the heir to the empire that's been killing my people for the last decade?" Lyra's golden eyes met his without fear. "Yes, but I am not their heir anymore." "What does that mean?" She looked down at the device in her hands. "My father, he fears me. I know things I should not know. I saw what he plans to do. He will not stop with your worlds. He will take everything. To him, war is not for power. It is for control of life itself." Rian frowned. "And what does that have to do with leaving you to die in the snow?" Her voice grew quieter. "He ordered it. He told the commanders to make sure I never left. This planet, my own people turned their weapons on me. The soldiers out there, they were not rescuing me. They were cleaning up my body for him." Rian studied her carefully. Her words felt too insane to be a lie, but too dangerous to fully believe. "Why not tell me this earlier?" He asked. "Would you have helped me?" She replied. He had no answer for that thought. The silence between them was broken by the faint sound of wind whistling through a crack in the wall. But then Rian realized it wasn't wind. It was a low hum. The same kind of sound enemy drones made. He killed the heater light instantly and moved to the window, peering through the frost. Shapes moved in the distance. Soldiers there, armor faintly glowing in the dark. "They're here," Rian said. Lyra's hand tightened on the device. "Then we don't have much time." Rian turned to her. "You said your father's plan. It's bigger than just this war. What is it?" She met his gaze. "He wants to take the core stars, the ones that hold the oldest life in the galaxy. He will burn them clean, rebuild the systems, and fill them with his own loyal creations. No humans, no freedom. Only him." Rian felt a coldness inside that had nothing to do with the weather. If she was telling the truth, this wasn't just a war between humans and Verans. It was something much worse. Before he could ask more, a sharp clang echoed from the far side of the outpost. Oats on metal. Lyra stood, pulling the device from her cloak. "I can use this once more, but after that, we have nothing." Rian grabbed his rifle, checking the charge. Only a few shots left. "Then we make them count." The soldiers outside were closer now, their voices carrying through the frozen air. The crunch of their boots moved toward the entrance. Rian took position beside the door, his finger on the trigger. Lyra stood behind him, the device in her hand glowing faint blue. They exchanged one quick glance. No words, just understanding. The first soldier stepped inside. Last stand in the blizzard, the outpost door creaked as the first soldier stepped through, his weapon glowing red in the dim frostlight. Rian didn't hesitate. One sharp shot. The blast caught the soldier in the chest, dropping him instantly. There was no time to breathe. More shadows filled the doorway, their heavy boots thundering against the frozen floor. Pulse fire lit the room in quick flashes of red. Back! Rian barked. He moved to cover Lyra as she crouched low, the strange device glowing brighter in her hands. Blue arcs of light ran along its surface like liquid lightning. Two soldiers rushed from the side, weapons raised. Rian dropped one with a quick shot, then ducked behind a broken metal beam as the second's fire scorched the wall beside his head. Now would be a good time for whatever that thing does. Rian shouted over the noise, almost ready. Lyra's voice was sharp but calm. The soldiers fanned out, their armor clinking as they advanced. Rian's rifle hummed weakly. The power cell was almost empty. Then the floor shook. It wasn't from weapons fire. It was deeper, heavier, like something massive moving through the ice. Rian's instincts screamed. They brought something with them. A moment later, the wall behind the soldiers exploded inward. Ice and steel flew in every direction, knocking two soldiers off their feet. From the hole stepped a towering figure, a war beast, mechanical and alive at the same time. Its armored body steamed in the cold, its four massive legs ending in claws that dug into the frozen floor. Red sensors glowed in place of eyes. The beast roared, the sound shaking the whole outpost. Lyra's glow from the device flared brighter, casting strange shadows across the walls. "Hold them off!" She shouted. Rian ducked behind a broken crate. As the beast charged, its claws slammed down where he'd been standing a heartbeat earlier, splitting the floor open. He fired at its head. The blast barely scorched its armor. "This isn't working." Lyra stepped forward, her hair whipping in the sudden rush of cold air the device created. Blue energy built in her hands, the storm outside answering her call. Snow and ice swirled into the open breach in the wall. Beast turned toward her. Rian didn't think. He ran straight at it, leaping onto one of its legs and climbing toward its back. The metal was slick and freezing under his gloves. The beast twisted violently, trying to throw him off, but Rian jammed his knife into a seam in its armor and held on. "Lyra, now!" She pressed her palm to the device. A blast of blue light erupted outward, striking the beast's chest. Ice crawled instantly across its armor, freezing its joints in place. Rian pulled his knife free and jumped clear just as the beast toppled over, crashing into the floor hard enough to send cracks running through the ice beneath them. The soldiers hesitated. Just for a second. It was enough. Lyra raised the device again, and the storm outside surged through the hole in the wall. A blizzard poured into the outpost, wind and snow slamming into the soldiers like a living thing. They staggered, their weapons useless in the swirling ice. Rian grabbed Lyra's arm. "We have to move now." They pushed through the chaos, slipping out the side of the outpost into the whiteout. Behind them, the war beast lay frozen solid, its red sensors dimming to black. The cold cut into them instantly, but Rian didn't slow. The storm was heavy enough to hide their escape. For now, Lyra's breathing was ragged, her steps slowing. The device in her hands no longer glowed. "It's done," she said quietly. "No more storms, no more tricks." Rian glanced back. Through the snow, he could see shapes moving. The soldiers were regrouping. "How far to the evac point?" he asked. She shook her head. "Too far. But there is one last place. If we reach it, they will not follow." "What place?" Her golden eyes met his. The old throne halls, my father's halls. He would not dare set foot there. Rian almost laughed at the thought of running straight into enemy territory, but the sound of the soldiers' voices in the storm told him there was no choice. Lead the way, princes, he said. They moved on through the storm, too small. Figures against the endless white, unaware that dawn would bring the final fight, and the truth neither of them could avoid. The seat beside the queen, the storm had eased by the time Rian and Lyra reached the black cliffs. Here, jagged stone rose from the ice like the bones of some ancient giant. At the base of the cliffs stood a structure unlike anything Rian had seen. Tall, arched gates carved from dark crystal, flanked by statues of alien warriors. This is it, Lyra said, her voice low. The old throne halls. A place my father fears. Rian scanned the area. It was quiet, too quiet. If he fears it, why? Because it was once the seat of the first rulers, ones even he could not control. Their memory still has power here. They stepped inside. The air was still, heavy with the scent of old stone and frost. Columns lined the hall, each one etched with strange symbols. At the far end sat a massive throne, carved from black crystal and dusted with snow. Lyra's pace slowed as she approached it. Her golden eyes reflected the faint light filtering through the cracks in the ceiling. She reached out, her fingers brushing the arm of the throne, and for a moment she looked different, stronger God. Then the sound came. Engines. Rian's head snapped toward the entrance. Through the broken gates, shadows moved, soldiers in dark armor, their weapons glowing. Behind them, the massive form of another war beast stalked forward. Its red sensors locked on them. Lyra turned to Rian. They won't stop. Not until one of us is dead. Rian raised his rifle, even though he knew the charge was almost gone. Then we make sure it's not us. The soldiers fanned out, advancing between the ancient columns. Pulse fire tore through the hall, striking stone and crystal, sending shards into the air. Rian returned fire, ducking behind a fallen pillar. The war beast's claws scraped against the floor as it moved closer. Lyra stepped forward, standing between Rian and the throne. She raised the black device, but it only flickered weakly. No storm would come this time. The beast lunged. Rian didn't think. He broke from cover, firing at its sensors to draw its attention. The massive head swung toward him, its jaws snapping inches from his chest. He rolled aside, grabbing a fallen soldier's weapon from the floor. The soldiers closed in, and Rian fought with everything he had. Bursts of fire, quick strikes with his knife when the enemy got too close. But there were too many. One soldier broke past him, charging toward Lyra. She didn't move. Her eyes locked on the attacker, and in that instant, something in the throne seemed to come alive. A faint golden glow pulsed from it into her. When the soldier reached her, she moved, faster than Rian had ever seen. She struck once, open-handed, and the soldier flew backward as if hit by a blast. But the war beast wasn't slowing. It lunged for her again. Rian sprinted across the hall, throwing himself between her and the beast's claws. The blow caught him across the side, sending pain tearing through his body. He hit the floor hard, his vision blurring. Through the haze, he saw Lyra step past him. Her hands glowed gold now, light streaming from her fingertips into the beast's chest. It roared, thrashing wildly, then collapsed, its body cracking apart like shattered ice. The hall fell silent. The remaining soldiers hesitated, then backed away, retreating through the gates. Lyra knelt beside Rian, her hands pressing against his wound. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered. He gave a weak smile. "I told you, I don't walk away from a fight." Her golden eyes softened. Then you have earned something no other human has." She reached into her cloak and pressed a small pendant into his hand, black crystal with her family's crest etched into it. "Show this to my people, and they will know you speak with my voice." Rian closed his fist around it. "What now?" She looked toward the throne, then back at him. "Now, I take my place, and when the time comes, I will call for you." He nodded slowly, understanding that this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something far larger than either of them. As he turned to leave, he glanced back one last time. Lyra was seated on the black crystal throne, her head held high, her golden eyes watching him go. The seat beside her was empty, for now.